This is War Room Moments, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and most relevant people on the planet, hear their stories, and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. War Room Moments is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board. Here's your host, Jason Miller.
Hey, welcome to today's episode of War Room Moments. My name is Jason Miller, your podcast host, and today I have a pretty special guest. He's near and dear to my heart. I've known him for a couple of years now. Geez, probably more than that. Probably like 3 years now, maybe even more. Hell, I don't know. I lost track of time. But anyway, Will Black, CEO of Sharing Credit. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
All right. Awesome. Well, hey, I'm pretty bad at introducing people and their companies. So I'm going to let you talk about your company. Even though I know your company pretty in depth, I could, but I'm going to let you do that. So why don't you tell the audience about yourself a little bit and what your superpowers are, brother?
If we want to talk about me, I'm in Aries. I like Chinese food and long walks on the beach, but that's boring or exciting. No, sharing the credit. We have a simple motto, and that is everything we touch gives, right? But at the end of the day, what we do is, listen, if you're in business, you have to take plastic to be in business, right? Everybody takes plastic. And what we do is we say, listen, one, you're overpaying. Everybody overpays. That's a dirty secret in the industry. But two is not only can you learn how to watch that for yourself. We can show you, we can teach you equations. That's one of our superpowers, right? We say without taking 19 terminal math degrees, you can learn how to watch this and keep an honest man honest. So whomever you go with, even if you don't use us. But then what we really do is we say one of those fees that come out of you, it doesn't go to Visa, it doesn't go to MasterCard, it goes back into the system, but it's legally allowed by the IRS to go to a charity. Not my charity, not Jason's charity, your charity, right? The thing that you know and love and want to support. So without you writing a check, you could give all day long. And it's without saying, would you like to add $1? Would you like to round up? Would you like to do anything except pay for the piece of pizza we just sold you, right? It's all the things that make people want to rip their face off. It's invisible, it's beautiful, and it goes into perpetuity.
Yeah. It's a wonderful thing. We all know why more companies don't do it. Obviously, it's about the dollar. But, on that vein of discussion, right, let's talk a little bit about the merchant system and where it is today, what trends you're seeing, all these things. You have several of the big pay-as-you-go systems versus, the big boy processing versus, hey, I sign up today and then, probably get my clock clean for the next couple of months until I finally figure it out. But
right.
So I'd like you to kind of drop a lot of that on the audience so they know what they're dealing with, because nobody really knows. And nobody ever wakes up in the morning and goes, I really need to look into a merchant account, right?
Not the most exciting conversation, but if you're going to be in business, it's got to happen. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
What am I selling? Right. Exactly. A great one to look at with this is always a startup, right? I mean, facts are facts. If somebody's going to get hosed, it's going to be the startup. The only difference is a startup knows and believes they have to be hosed and that they can't do anything but. And I want to tell them, I'm like, listen, we have multi-million-dollar accounts that come in here. And when we go through their numbers and you think, oh, well, they've got people that are still confused, still need to, be shown the way. But let's look at the startup. You said like there's the Stripe, Square, PayPal, yada, yada, yada. It's what you call a pay-as-you-go account. And it is fantastic. They absolutely have their place. If you sell, let it swap me. or if you're in your first 30, 60, 90 days or 6 months or yada, yada, yada. The problem is sometimes you build up your business, and you and I have seen this, where a guy who started out and he's doing $1,000 a month, and in 2 years he's doing $400,000 a month, and he's still on Stripe, Square, PayPal, whatever. And you're like, that's 130% of what you need to pay every month. You need a regular big boy, big girl account. Time to, hey, if you're a woman of business, time to pull yourself up by your ovaries and get in there, because you can learn this. These guys, they can get in there, they can learn it. It's just ask a few questions. But at the end of the day, if you are on a pay-as-you-go account, you're paying 130% of what you have to pay. And it's not always just the startup. It's the guy, he's in there, it's integrated, and you are being hosed. You need to think about that. Well, is it really that big a difference? Yeah. Do you want to pay $130 for something that Jason pays $100 for? Or $1,300 for something Will pays $1,000 for, right? What they call the Cheerios test. If Cheerios cost $3 a box, are you willing to pay $4 a box for a box of dadgum Cheerios? The answer should be hell no. Or let's talk about some therapy. Right? Yeah. If you're buying them from your sister or your brother or your cousin, and you're trying to help, okay, great. But you don't overpay. Startups get this all day long. We tell this to startups. You don't have to go with us, but don't do X, Y, Z, A, B, C. These are things that are hemorrhaging you out. One is you can use these little pay-as-you-go accounts, but learn what you're doing. And the moment you pass $1,000, $1,500 a month, you need to be a regular account. You need to be a regular account. And it's not always the small guys, right? I told you a couple of years ago about the group that was doing $1 million a month in processing, right? And they were overpaying $30,000 a year. We just talked to a company. They do $20 million a month. Keep them in your thoughts and prayers, right? 20 million in plastic a month. Wow. And they were overpaying $5 million a year in fees that they didn't know that they were overpaying. Everybody, it's always a little fine tuning. It's always working, but everybody can be taught. As a CEO, as a CFO, as a person in your business, you can learn how to watch this number. Well, you know as closely as I do know, but you can come to us. We do free trainings. We do Zoom events. You can come in there and start up to CEO. We don't care. We will teach you 90 seconds a month. Jason, do you have 90 seconds a month, a work month to devote to your company to make sure you're not hemorrhaging at your credit card terminal, right? Yeah. I think you got 90.
I think it's more along the lines of when you start tagging it to things, right?
Right.
When you start tagging it to like, it's a car every month that you could add to your fleet, right? It's salary, pays Tim, John, Bill, and Susie's salary every month, right?
Right.
I think that's the way to get the attention, and you got to tag it to a thing, right? Because you tell me, hey, you're overpaying by this dollar amount in your business by something. Okay, yeah, I got it. But you're overpaying enough to add 2 more fleet vehicles to your taxi service that you have. Right. Now you got my attention.
Right. Well, you're a big P&L guy, and this has always been your thing, right? You say that is your North Star. That is what you're guiding your ship by. Amen. As we tell people, we have to put it in perspective. We do tons and tons of charities, obviously, but we had a little little group, and they were an animal shelter. They did $17,000 a month, not huge, good for an animal shelter, and they were overpaying $10,000 a year. And I said, "That's it. Is that an employee? How many animals? How many vaccines? How many? What is your kennel cost? What is your turnover rate?" And they said, "We could put 2 more part-time people on there and buy, and and take another 2,000 dogs off the street and get them vaccinated for that $10,000. That's real world application, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, guess what? Here's what you really got to drink in. It's not with you then going and get X number more clients. It's just fixing the leak. Go over there, turn the knob. You've got a cash nozzle and it's burning dollars every day. And it's fixable.
Yeah, right. Well, it's like most things are fixable in business, right? It's a matter of us getting our head out of the trees sometimes, right? And being able to see these things. And then when somebody does tell us, hey, this is what's going on, you have to actually listen. Right. And is the process always easy? Well, no, sometimes it's not, right? But the best things in life are often hard, right? So, or not, hard's not the right word, right? It's just it's a different process, and you have to be able to see the longer term sometimes, for sure.
It's not always a fun process, but it's not the nightmare we make it out to be, right? We step over the laundry for 2 days and then it becomes invisible. Laundry is not that hard. You can do about 10 minutes. You just don't want to do it. You don't want that particular pain in your particular butt, right? That $1 million car dealership, when we turned their numbers over and we said, all right, you were overpaying $30,000 in fees. He made a joke and he said, wow, that's a car. That's a whole car. And his whole team laughed because the boss laughed, right? So now we're allowed to laugh. But we said, listen, here, we'll give you the numbers back and you can take it back to your current provider and argue the rates down. And he said, like we even want that nightmare. And that tells you all you need to know. He said, can you fix it? You fix it. You make it go on. Like we absolutely, like we even wanted that nightmare. $30,000. He was going to have it done, but he didn't want to. But now he knew about it. He had to. He was going to do it. So,
yeah. Well, that's my thing. It's when you know better, you do better, right?
Right.
So,
right.
Most people do anyway. Obviously, we know some that knew better and still didn't do better.
Right. So. Well, I mean, if you get a phone bill and you're paying 300% more, than you were last month, that sticks out. I got to do something about this, right? This is sometimes it seems to be working fine. No, you were hemorrhaging cash. We can fix it. We'll show you.
Yeah, it's like it's like the arm that got shot off and the tourniquet's been on there for years, right?
We left the tourniquet on. Well, I got used to it,
That's right.
I've been decorating it. See, I got it bedazzled. I've got rhinestones on it. That's disgusting. Get rid of that.
Oh, that's too funny. Well, yeah. Well, part of the reason for this podcast, right, is I always look at one of my focuses for this podcast is to really reach out to the young business owner, right? The up and coming gal or guy that is 24 years old and they're just out there doing it, right? They're doing their thing and the arrows are already in flight. They just don't realize it yet, but they will land in the back shortly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So kind of the purpose of this is, number one, we're building up a bank of business struggles, right? Because I think the generation above me did a really crappy job of willingly wanting to mentor, right? Unless you pulled out your checkbook and wrote a substantial check, right?
Right.
And that's not where I want to be. And basically, I want a young CEO to be able to start at episode 1 of this podcast and build up their bank of, okay, not doing that. Episode 2. Nope. I know that now. Right. So,
right.
So it's building up that war chest of other people's struggles so they won't have to deal with them. Right. Because there is no doubt this generation is way smarter than us. No doubt about it. I mean, I'm just speaking, and you got small kids too. And my 3-year-old knows how to use my iPhone better than I do. And she's 3, for Christ's sake. Right. So it's like they're more plugged in. They're just going to be smarter human beings. It's like,
Jason, you're too pretty to know how to do all that complicated stuff. Don't worry about it.
Evolution's happening before our very eyes.
Right.
So in saying that, if you could pick like a main struggle that you've had, or you could go back and tell your former younger self, hey, dumbass, here's a struggle you're going to have.
Right.
and here's how you're going to want to deal with that when that arrow's in flight. What would you share with a young CEO?
Golly. The only trouble on that one is which one to pick, right? I mean, you can't be in that kind of combat with having a certain number of scars, and you got to say which is my favorite or worst scar that I would have. The one I'll skip over would be is I should have done what I did years earlier. You know, we hold ourselves back, and hopefully this generation is learning that. We always have people that are doing that. I had to work for too many other people for too long, but really, we get in our own way, right? We really get in our own way. I had 2 main things, and they were both 2 different sides of the same coin. And you remember this. I was, when we're really expanding and we're building up or doing our stuff, but our conversation, when I was telling groups how to do this, it was a 45-minute conversation. I'm surprised those people didn't ritually commit suicide on the phone just to end the conversation. They should have just, or at least have faked a heart attack and pretended they died. I mean, just get out of it. And I was told, record myself. You probably remember back in that, right? Record yourself doing it. And what happened is now I tell people what we do, how we do, what they can do. In about 12, 13, maybe 15 minutes, and 5 minutes of that is them telling me about their organization and what they're trying to do, right? And it's not because I'm sitting there doing the speed talk or conversation. It's just not about me. Tell me about you. Tell me about what you're doing. Then okay, and here it is, and this is how we do it. Here's a couple of proofs, and here's a couple of key pieces, and give this to your board, and yada, yada, and we're going. That was a life-changing moment. The second was ask for the sale. You'd be amazed how many people take the girl to prom, buy the dinner, do the whole 9 yards, and don't lean in for the smooch. That's the whole point. She got the dress, she got made up, she ate the meal, she did the whole thing, and then you're just not, and you need to be able to say, listen, I think this would work for your group, and I think this is a good idea. Here's the way to do it. You have to say, if they don't say right then and there, let's do it, you say, you don't get off the phone without saying, when's our second date, right? And you know this. When is your second date? No. Mm-hmm. You see when I brought the prom night here, right? We're working on closing some deals. So the whole point is when are we back on? And right then and there, if they are wasting your time or if they have any intent. And it's insane when we started saying, when can we get back on the phone? You've got to present this to your board. You've got to get your team member on board. You've got to do whatever it is, whatever they're talking about. When is that so that we can get back on the phone? That's it. How hard is it? And here's the other thing. If you can't ask that question, you don't need to be a member of your own company.
Right.
I've had to do this. I've intimidated myself out of a couple of things. And I said, if I can't make this phone call, if I can't say that, I don't deserve to be the CEO of my own daggum company. And you know what? I made that call. And that's the whole point. So record yourself. You'll be amazed at the junk you get out of that. And then those people are listening to the sizzle. They're not talking about how it, of that steak. They're not talking about how to grow a cow. And then you say, when can we get on the phone next? When can we, because you were closing it right then and there. It's amazing the change that makes, just that. If I had learned that years ago, I'd be on my own island now, but I'm still heading there.
I tell you, it is amazing that, and I've seen it for years that people just, it's like, I call it the baffle with the bullshit method, right? Because people think the more I talk, the better my message is getting across. Actually, it's the opposite. The more you talk and the more mechanics you give, the more smoke starts to come out of people's ears, right? Because they don't understand it. They don't get it, right? And then we go, why don't you get this? Well, you've been doing it for 30 years. And it's like, now you just expect somebody to decode NASA in freaking 5 minutes, right? It's like, why don't you get it?
Right. Right. You do this all day long. And just because you took 13 times as many words. I have fired insurance reps for my company because they refused to not talk in jargon. And I say, talk to me like you're talking to a second grader who speaks a different language than you. Because insurance is not my thing. If you, I can't, I get the idea, the concept, but don't just talk with me, interact with me.
Right.
It's a whole different beast.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, kind of wrapping this up, one of the things I like to ask is if you could pick someone, anybody, friend, mentor, family, whatever the case may be, dead or alive, that you had a burning question you've wanted to ask, what would the question be and who would have you invited to the show?
My 5 times 5X great grandfather is the first person that went from Scottish soil to American soil. And that takes some cojones. That takes some real up and gumption to leave everything He moved to Virginia, became a shipbuilder, went to the Revolutionary War. I have his Revolutionary War saber in my house. It is the source of the Black family power. I talk to veterans all day long. I say the worst I don't get the parade. I get to clap in it. The worst I did was military school, and not because I couldn't. I was an incorrigible and was shipped off. It was just a school in my area. But he served, was shot like 11 times, wounded incredibly. I'd love to have a conversation with that particular guy because that's building. It's not built. He had to build a whole new life. He had to build a business. He had to build a whole new thing, which ended up bought some land that lasted a few generations. Was an incredible individual, and I'd love to talk to people and hear the struggles of it. It's like you don't get the happy ending without the horror story. Right?
Yeah.
Or they'll show Biggest Loser. You see this guy who's 500 pounds on 19 medications. And then at the end of it, he weighs 140 pounds. He's taking no meds. He's not using the CPAP. He's not taking diabetes medication. And you want that joy for that guy. You don't want to gain 400 pounds to do it.
Right.
But James Black was my ancestor. He came over here. He faced incredible odds, built some businesses, and that was not in the atomic age. I was not in the computer age. How did you do that? How did you force it? And I think his answer would be, you had to, right? It's literally victory or death. If you don't achieve, you don't eat. There was no coddling feelings. We feel bad for your son, but if you don't get out here and work, you're not going to have food, because my food is for the guy out working. But at the same time, as we've done that, my family has given historically. I learned a number of things about some family members that I didn't know about. And we build that into the company. Every time we touch gives. We show these businesses. Every time somebody comes in and swipes card, give to your cause. And it will feel painless. Because as we say, don't write a check to your charity anymore. Let MasterCard Visa do it.
Yeah.
Let MasterCard Visa do it. You got to pay them anyway. Let them pay the bill.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, how do people get a hold of you to work with you, Will?
I do not have my own bat signal. I don't know what it would look like if I did. No. At our website, sharingthecredit.com, the name says it all. The first job is, if you have a business, we have to make this a win for you. We got to show you where you're overpaying. We got to save you some money. And then we show you how to give. And that's why we call it sharing the credit. Every time somebody swipes a card, they can be giving to their cause, not my cause, not Jason's cause, their cause, the one that they love and support. They go to sharingthecredit.com, and one of our funding specialists will walk them through how to save and how to give. That's it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, Will Black, Sharing the Credit, CEO of Sharing the Credit. Thanks for being here. I know.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know we all have busy days, and yeah, I appreciate you coming on today for sure.
Thanks, sir.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for tuning in today to this episode of War Room Moments. My name is Jason Miller. Remember, dream it, believe it, and achieve it. It's Jason Miller signing off.
Thanks for listening to War Room Moments with your host, Jason Miller. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we'll see you on the next episode.